Good evening, afternoon, night, morning, whenever you find a way to watch this podcast. Joining me today on this great morning, got the day off and everything, is an old friend of the podcast, friend I haven't had in a while, a long, long time. We got Preston Adams joining. I know last time we talked about Colgate, a big what if scenario with Colgate and the Independence Bowl. That was a delight almost 4 years ago, to be honest with you. But joining me once again, far overdue, Preston. How's everything going? I'm just glad we're able to reconnect.
Thank you for having me, Omar. I really appreciate it. Yeah, it has been a little bit. So we need to make sure that we don't spend so much time apart next time.
Yeah, absolutely. That's just the thing, with the college football community that I've stressed in other podcasts. You can grow the community so much. The people that you interact with, that you like lose track of. The
hmm
people over time. So that's just what happened here. But I'm just glad we're able to reconnect here, just talk about something that's near and dear to your heart, something that you're close to, with the CAA Football Conference. And out of nowhere, you are a JMU alum, and so out of nowhere, one of your old time tested rivals, one of your in-state rivals, left for the Patriot League. William and Mary joining their other in-state rival, their Capital Cup opponent, Richmond, to the Patriot League, and so now there are no Virginia schools in the CAA Football Conference. William and Mary will stay in the CAA, which is its own separate entity, the football conference and the regular conference. They will stay in the CAA and all other sports except football, but go to the Patriot League in football. So, what are your thoughts? I guess first on Richmond, having been the first domino, and then now with William and Mary, both joining the Patriot League.
Well, in terms of Richmond, I can honestly say we weren't really that surprised. Since it's a private school, Pager League is a bunch of private schools. Their endowments match up a little better with current Patriot League schools than it does in the CAA at this point. But I want to say when Richmond left, I called William and Mary. I didn't have them going to the Patriot League. I think I said I had them going to the NEC because it was just kind of like, well, where are they going to go next? Um, but I'm not. I'm like, I mean, the timing was kind of shocking, but I'm not surprised that William and Mary eventually made the move. And when you think about it, it makes sense for them to move with Richmond. They're really the only rival that they have left because Delaware is in CUSA now. Yeah, that's a thing. Um, so I'm not surprised. I guess it's just kind of a matter of when, not if.
Yeah, that's interesting that you said. I thought it was a matter of when, not if, because for me, thinking with William and Mary being a public institution, I thought that the Patriot League would have not so much turned their nose up, but just kind of like stayed away from William and Mary being a Patriot League school. But I guess in terms of William and Mary's history, just it doesn't matter if they're public or not, their history and just their reputation academically. So
Yeah.
I'm glad, I guess, as a Patriot League fan, a fan of Holy Cross when I was growing up near Holy Cross, and who with Army and Navy being in the Patriot League for Olympic sports. I mean, I'm
hmm
glad to see they made the move, but it's just a shame what the CAA has become, the CAA Football Conference at least. And I'm not saying the quality of the teams, but how far away it's strayed from the lineage of the Yankee Conference, because the Yankee Conference was probably the most name brand FCS conference dating back to the Division One AA days, with
hmm
mostly Delaware, but also UMass going to national championships, Villanova having great moments as well. Now, out of the right now 13 members of the CAA Football Conference, only four are from that 90s group of Yankee Conference schools: UNH, Maine, Rhode Island, and Villanova. And then only one more member was an original member of the CAA Football Conference when it adopted football in 2007, and that being Towson. So you have 8 members that have joined the fold since 2012, 2013, with Albany, Stony Brook, and so on and so forth. So this league is quickly losing its identity, where no, I don't think it's in an existential crisis, but it's not what it once was, sadly. We really have strayed away from the Yankee Conference identity, Yankee Conference Atlantic 10 identity, and it's sad. And I think with a greater discussion, which maybe might be a discussion for another time, that longing for a Yankee Conference type thing, where it's Sacred Heart and Merrimack, who we'll talk about later on, playing for the Yankee Conference championship.
hmm
So, all that to say, another question I have for our discussion is: do you think that the CAA Football Conference is in danger after the loss of another Yankee Conference member?
I don't want to sound doom and gloom, but yes. I think that it's only a matter of time now before Villanova leaves. Um, just you mentioned old Yankee Conference teams, but of those teams that you mentioned, the Maines and the Rhode Islands, Villanova really is the only one with like recent anyway reputable like football rapport. And losing a William and Mary, losing Richmond. I mentioned that once they left, once they lost the Virginia schools, in terms of basketball, that's when I was like, oh, the CAA is not going to be the same moving forward. I mean, that's not just me saying that as a JMU person. That like it didn't. I mean, it's literally right smack dab in the middle of what used to be the CAA conference, and now there's no more Virginia football schools, and so I just think that Villanova's going to leave. Obviously, they're not going to go FBS. And it's the Big East that was trying to make them go FBS a while ago. And Villanova's just not going to go FBS. They don't want to make that investment. They're way too heavily into basketball. Um, but I could totally see the Patriot League, if they aren't already having discussions with Villanova, picking up those discussions like immediately. So I think that Villanova will leave. Um, I mean, honestly, why doesn't the conference just split in half like it used to be? Like, there's clearly a divide now between northern schools and southern schools. And, it's not that they can't coexist or anything, but um, it just seems like it would be better if the conference was like seven over here, six over here, or something like that. Um, yeah, I, I mean, I truly think that Villanova really is next on the chopping block.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you on that one. For me, I don't know. I think it all comes down to, I think, whether the four football only members from the Yankee Conference, I think it would just take one of them for there to not really be a mass exodus, but for there to be, I guess, multiple members leaving. I think the only issue I see, I think Villanova is a slam dunk, and I feel like the Patriot League might be content at 10. Right now, they stand at 9 after the additions of William and Mary and Richmond. I think they'd be content at 10. It makes a lot of sense. It makes things easier to manage. And Villanova's a great geographic fit, of course, with Lafayette, Lehigh, and Bucknell as it is. And then
Mhm.
Fordham, additionally, too, a couple hours away from Philadelphia. I mean,
Yeah.
it beats having to make the trips to the Carolinas to play Elon, and also all the way up to Maine too. I mean, even though Maine was an original Yankee Conference member, it does beat having to make that trip. So I think I can see Villanova, but I can see the exodus stopping at, I think, with if Villanova leaves, then it would be 12 teams. So I don't particularly think that the CAA is in danger. I just think that it's the comparison I made was the post Miami and Virginia Tech Big East, where you
Mhm.
lose those two schools and the conference isn't in any immediate danger. Of course, we all know what happens about a decade after Miami and Virginia Tech leave, but it's not the same conference we're looking at here, sadly. And that's no discredit to any of the schools, but to the national perception, when you think of what the Yankee Conference is, the geographic area, and just the pedigrees of the programs, the histories of the programs, schools like Bryant, schools like Elon don't really. I guess Bryant, due to their age as a program, and then schools like Elon don't really fit the profile of that historic Yankee Conference Atlantic 10 just due to the geography. So
Mhm.
it's interesting because there is an identity crisis with the CAA Football Conference. Are you a Northeastern League or are you a um, I guess an Atlantic League, a Mid-Atlantic slash Upper South League, and it kind of shows because they changed the name from the Colonial Athletic Conference to the Coastal Athletic. I don't know if I've just been saying CAA, but I feel like I might have slipped once and said Colonial Athletic Association at some point.
Mhm.
But it's the Coastal now because of that identity crisis. So I don't
Right.
think it's an existential crisis, but I do think that you do have a watered down CAA, which doesn't hurt now, but it will hurt in media negotiations in the future, as we saw with Conference USA. Like Conference USA, after the members left, they're under their original deal, but after that, like they got a much watered down deal.
Hmm. Absolutely. And guess what? I'm rocking CUSA right now.
No disrespect to CUSA. I mean, I was in CUSA country just a couple months ago. Just finished out my term out at Fort Bliss. So I mean, I love Conference USA, but that's just what happened essentially with the league. And I think the same thing's happening with the CAA. But
Mm-hmm.
Villanova makes a lot of sense. I think just talking about potential shuffling, I want to ask too, like, do you think Merrimack, Sacred Heart, the two independents, or any NEC teams are at play for the CAA?
I mean, who are you going to replace William and Mary with?
Yeah.
Who are you going to replace Richmond with? They had a they tried to backfill JMU with three teams. Like, there's no team with the or no school with the gravitas of a William and Mary or a Richmond that they can just kind of try and snatch up. So uh, I I mean, D'Antonio loves to add schools, so he'll probably try to add a couple schools, but I just can't think of anybody off the top of my head. I mean, the CAA, I feel like they courted Howard for a little bit, but Howard's not going to leave the MEAC for the CAA. I mean, they do have Hampton, so that might have been a little bit of a pull, but they still play each other, so there's really like no reason for Howard to just join the conference. Um, Honestly, I'm not sure who they would try to pull, because there's no one else left in Virginia. Period.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I do agree. It's not like they're at a low membership total right now. They'll be at 13 in 2026 when William Mary leaves, 14 this year after Delaware and Richmond leaves for their respective conferences. So it's not exactly a numbers game. And maybe it's better off for the sake of the media deal where you have less mouths to feed. It definitely seems like it would be better off, especially with the Flow Sports deal. Um, it doesn't seem like it pays, I think, a good amount, but not as great amount, of course, as you're not going to get A10 Missouri Valley Conference money or MVFC money as it is. So I don't really see them adding anyone unless we see a mass exodus with the football only members, because being in I guess a tough part about being in a separate entity football conference is that you have members that don't have anything else to lose, really. Like UNH is in America. UNH and Maine are in America East. Rhode Island is in the A10, and then Nova's in the Big East. So it's
Hmm.
like those schools. If those schools leave, I mean, they still have their homes in other conferences. There's no bridges being burned for the foreseeable future. But you get
Hmm.
schools like Towson, Elon. I mean, all your all sports members that also play football in the league. That's when you begin to have a problem. So I don't
Right.
really see them expanding right now. The options, like you said, are pretty thin. It's like, do you want to get back into Virginia? I think it would be interesting to see them get further westward into Pennsylvania, but at that, I guess, for westward in Pennsylvania and going with either a Robert Morris or a Duquesne, both football only
Hmm.
schools in the NEC. But at
Hmm.
that point, you risk aggravating, Maine and New Hampshire, your outposts out in upper New England, with them having to travel to Western Pennsylvania. So I don't think that juice is worth the squeeze. So I really don't see much movement in the near term, except for Villanova, like you say. But I feel like it stops there. We just have a nice, neat 12-team CAA that maybe gets a couple bids, but otherwise, I just don't think that um, they're not like the Colossus they were in the late 2000s, like when
Yeah.
you were in school at JMU.
Yeah. We're not getting 6 bits anymore.
Yeah, and it's sad. It's sad because, man, like I remember growing up in New England and seeing those games, just like the reruns of the games on
Mhm.
cable networks, and reruns of the regional sports network aired CAA games. Like, so, like seeing James Madison. Heck, I remember even seeing the days with Hofstra before they shut down their program.
Yeah.
So I just think that there's a greater. I think these dominoes have been falling since the late 2000s when Hofstra and Northeastern shut down their programs, and it just became less viable. Football and like FCS football and in the Northeast became less viable over time, sadly, at some point. So it's just sad to see these dominoes start falling. But away from the Northeast, I want to talk about the Southern Conference. Southern Conference right now could be in a enticing position to sort of attract members from the CAA to their league. So I want to know your thoughts. Do you think the SoCon makes a move maybe on William and Mary for other sports, or just attracts more Southern members for their league? Because right now they stand at 10 members for all sports and 9 for football.
Um, maybe they make a play for Elon. Because other than Elon, um, no offense to the SoCon, I don't think they're going to try and add A in Tier Hampton.
Yeah.
But
No.
yeah, I think that maybe they make a play for Elon. I think that that would, I mean, honestly make sense. It's literally right in their geographic footprint. Um, but they're definitely in a position of power right now. And if they start to pick off those southern, and it's only going to be the SoCon, like the OVC is not going to attract somebody away from the CAA, even as like spread apart as the CAA is. It's not as spread apart as the OVC. So I think that they might, I feel like conference commissioners are always on the phones with presidents and we just don't know about it. So they're probably already like, doing back channel stuff with Elon right now. But that's really the only school that I can think of, like right off the top of my head, that they would try to add. Um, I mean, it would make sense for them to add Wilmington because Wilmington doesn't have football. So I think that, and if they did try to add Elon, they would probably try to add them as a full time member. I don't think it would be just a football ad.
Yeah, I think so. I think they would also be. I think it would be a full time membership. The idea that I saw being floated around with the CAA and the SoCon was the SoCon potentially um, adding College of Charleston and UNC Wilmington, both two great schools that are uh, you know 20 plus win men's basketball caliber programs.
That's
And
true.
I heard the term multi-bid league thrown around if those schools join the fold, which I don't, I'm not willing to say that it would be a multi-bid league, but if we're talking NIT and higher seeding to potentially get more units for your conference, I think having the having the College of Charleston, UNC Wilmington, along with your Furmans, your Woffords in the Southern Conference, your UNC
Mhm.
Greensboros, that makes that just a league where you're potentially getting a 12 seed every year in the men's tournament, and it helps out with potentially getting pulling upsets. So I want to know your thoughts, I guess, on the College of Charleston potentially leaving. I don't think they really care that much about the football situation in the conference, but it is an interesting situation to think about.
I could see that actually. Because now, especially since the Virginia schools left, the SoCon is a better basketball conference as well. So they would absolutely be a multi-bid league. In the late 2000s, it wasn't a matter of if the CAA would get two or three bids. It was a matter of they could possibly get four because it used to be that strong of a basketball league. And I think that, schools like College of Charleston and UNCW, they definitely miss that, strong basketball presence. So I could actually see, maybe they do go for both. But this is college sports now, and it's all completely unpredictable.
Yeah, there's so many maybe scenarios, so many variables at hand. That's why like I'm more inclined to sit and wait with this situation. It's not as much a slam dunk. Like there definitely is some waiting to be done, some gray areas, and some costs and I guess some costs and some rewards for both sides, both teams leaving, looking to leave the CAA football conference slash CAA, or both teams staying or choosing to stay in the CAA football conference or greater
Mhm.
league. So it's just a situation that seems very fluid. And I feel like, too, like we mentioned earlier, I feel like some of it might have to be house settlement, honestly. I mean, just waiting along with that, because like honestly I don't even understand what the house settlement entails for a lot of programs. Like for me, it just seems like a term that's thrown around a lot without any clear definition.
Mhm. Yeah, it's kind of like when people say, "quote the wild wild west," and I'm like, You're just throwing around terms that get repeated around a billion times." I'm like, y'all don't really know what you're talking about. No offense to ESPN, but honestly, sometimes I'm just like, how do you guys get paid so much?
Yeah, no, I want to the same thing too sometimes, but I think that covers most of the discussion that I had written down. Preston, is there anything else that you want to add, or anything else you want to bring up for discussion?
um, so we mentioned this in the pre-show, and I do want to get your thoughts on the record about this. You and I both love the MEAC. We're like good old MEAC boys. but Howard at this point, I mean, it's literally like right across the street from Georgetown. It's like right there. And we mentioned the fact that, there's a celebration bowl. Clearly, that makes a ton of money for the entire conference, not just the schools that make it. At what point does the Patriot League say, we really should have Howard?
I think Howard looks at what the Patriot League has to offer. I don't think the Patriot League has a very lucrative media deal. Like they
Right.
don't really have any games on linear television. Um, for I guess conference wide. In fact, the last conference controlled game on linear television was a spring Patriot League championship game
Mhm.
back in like 2020, the pandemic season back in the spring of 2021. There hasn't been a conference controlled Patriot League game on a linear platform since then. I think looking at that and looking at how the MEAC has, the weeknight games, and they've even been able to get some Saturday space on linear
Mhm.
TV the past couple years. I think they see
Mhm.
that along with the Celebration Bowl, and I think and something that I discussed on a podcast that shoot at the time of this recording is going to be released in a couple of hours, so hasn't hit. Well, will have hit the airwaves by the time this one drops. Talking with Bobby, the TNT College Football Podcast, is maybe there is in this day and age where conferences are just so huge and there's perceived strength in numbers. Maybe there's some reward to having less mouths to feed, less mouths to have to share money with within a conference.
Right.
And also too, like you can't really beat the control that MEAC schools have. Like, yes, there's 6 schools, but they're not competing for the FCS playoffs. They're competing for the Celebration Bowl, which, like you said, pays out millions of dollars. And also too, like Howard doesn't really have to deal with playing conference opponents that are super far away against their own will. I think the farthest that they have to go typically is, I guess, within conference, are the Carolina schools.
Yeah, South
Uh,
Carolina State, I think, is the farthest.
yeah, and so they have like control over their schedule. They get 6 non-conference games at least per year. In years like this, where I guess the calendar fits 14 Saturdays within a season, they get 7 non-conference games, which you can mix that however your athletic department needs. Whether you need a couple FBS games to balance the books, or you want games like local series, or you want to bring in I guess a local D2 program or NEC program to help sell tickets to a home game to make money off a home game. Like
Mhm.
there's a lot. What I've seen with the MEAC situation is like we were so quick to write off the MEAC. Well, I guess I say we as a loose term. Like a lot of the FCS media, we were so quick to write off the FCS the MEAC as being dead
Yeah.
when that mass exodus was happening. And looking back, it's like man, like they really do have a nice thing with these 6 teams with the Celebration Bowl, and with honestly, they're as close to being an FCS independent as as can be for a team that's not FCS independent. So I
Right.
don't really see unless I feel like if Howard or any school in the MEAC were to leave, I feel like it hinges on the Celebration Bowl because we hear it all the time about what it costs to hold the FCS playoff game. The various numbers we get, it's like like teams have to bid for that, and it's like who wants that
Yeah.
headache when
Right.
ESPN is paying for the whole thing? Which granted that contract could go up. It's not as much as could be desired, but it's better than what the FCS playoffs has to offer. I think from a revenue perspective, and if the consolation prize to moving to the or if the prize for moving to the CAA is at best playing in a semifinal, or say you do make it past the Montana schools slash the
Or
Dakota
the
schools,
Dakotas. Yeah.
losing in the national championship game. So that's just my take. Like I think the MEAC is here to stay. 6 schools in all. Like, and if a CIAA school ends up getting the funds, getting the resources to move up, then they'll move up. But I think those 6 schools are here to stay, and I think it's for the good. I think for the long run.
And honestly, the CIAA has a much more storied football past than the MEAC. So, schools like Virginia State and Johnson C. Smith, formerly Biddle College, like those schools are like, "Psh, why do we want to move? We're the ones with the tradition and the history and all of that." So I don't see like the upside for even a CIAA school to move up to the MEAC at this point anyway. Um, But, like you said, the MEAC is probably happy, just staying at 6 schools. I know that they've done some inquiries, had some talks and whatnot. Um, but and maybe it's because Howard's like literally across the pond for me. Howard's always on my mind. So I'm always just like, well, I mean, Howard's private, right?
Yeah, it's private. It's a
Okay,
private
okay,
institution.
that's what I thought. I just wanted to double check. I didn't want to say anything and then be incorrect. Yeah, Howard's like it's a private school. It's a private northeastern-ish school. There's a reason why I didn't mention Delaware State or Morgan State. Howard kind of fits the Patriot mold, but all your points are completely valid. It's just kind of like, well, why would they want to move? They will probably be making less money. And unfortunately, at the end of the day, this is a business, and so they have to make business decisions. So I agree. Like I, it would be interesting for Howard to move to the Patriot League. I think that it would be kind of awesome if the Patriot League was like, we should stop ignoring Howard. But at the end of the day, I at least not for the next couple of years. But then again, who saw William and Mary moving?
Yeah, no, I agree. Like we can't really write off anything as a certainty, but I pulled up Howard's schedule, and this is just the benefit of MEAC membership. I think I made a remark about this being one of the greatest schedules I've ever seen at the FCS level, just in terms of fun experiences for fans. You get a game against Florida A&M in the Orange Blossom Classic. You get a game at Temple at their NFL stadium because that's their home
Hmm.
stadium. You get
Hmm.
Morehouse in their yearly classic at Giant Stadium. It's not even
Hmm.
Giant Stadium, MetLife Stadium. I'm thinking like it's the 80s, but then you get the yearly game against Hampton. Yeah, I still call it Giant Stadium, but then you get the yearly game against Hampton at Audi Field. So that's 3 neutral site games and another game at NFL Stadium, all in the first 4 weeks of the season. Then you skip on down, and then they play at Tennessee State at Nissan Stadium. So that's 5 pro venues, and that's something that if you join the CAA, and most years you get 3 non-conference games. One of those is going to be an FBS game if you're Howard. Another one of the Hampton game gets it becomes a conference game. So then you have 2 spaces to deal with. So you don't exactly have opportunities like that. And even the next year with Howard too, like they'll be playing the MEAC SWAC kickoff in Atlanta.
Hmm.
And they also play against Rutgers too. And so, like you said, to your point with Howard being a private institution, I think their schedule allows it. And as perceptions in not just the Patriot League, but also the Ivy League, perceptions of the Howards, the Morgan States change within those schools, and they're more willing to play those schools. We're seeing more of those games. I mean, Howard has played Princeton, Harvard, Yale the past 3 years. Even
Hmm.
Morgan State, I think, played Yale or either Princeton or Yale a couple years ago. I can't remember, but
Hmm.
I think the MEAC is the perfect place to have your cake and eat it too if you're Howard or if you're any of those schools in that conference.
Yeah, yeah. And like I said, there's a reason why they haven't been, trying to jump ship for the last couple of years. They know that they have it good. Like playing in, you said 4 NFL stadiums. Well, one Audi Field is DC United, but but
Yeah.
it's a gorgeous facility,
Oh, it's
absolutely
amazing. I
gorgeous
love it.
facility. Like unfortunately the football tears it up a little bit, but it's a
Yeah.
gorgeous facility. So yeah, I guess maybe Howard won't move. Now, I do have a question for you. Can we
Okay.
talk about the fact that JMU is hosting Washington State?
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
It is pretty cool. I think that's definitely a victory in this circumstance where we have a lot of schools. Like I know JMU is hosting Washington State. I know also North Texas is hosting Washington State, and then I think Tulsa. I want to say Tulsa as well. They either play or host. I want to say that they host Oregon State. So that's I think the best thing out of the Pac-2. Like really, we get really quirky schedules, and also with the media situation. Like last year we had Portland State and Idaho State play on back-to-back time slots on the CW. This year, we get the Lafayette Leopards playing on October 18th on the CW. In all likelihood, that media deal hasn't been announced, but there's been kind of leaks about there being like 9 out of 13 games in the CW. So you get teams in the Patriot League on national network TV. You get JMU hosting a rare intersectional game against Washington State.
Yeah.
It's just great. And I think that's kind of another thing where it's like if you're an FBS school, you get to do cool things like that. You get to host Washington State. You get to have a sellout. You get to do all those things and add media value to your contract. I mean, if to the Sunbelt contract that you wouldn't do as an FCS school. So I'm not saying that like that vindicates the move or not. Again, not yeah. I wouldn't say that validates the move, but it definitely is a plus that like of things that fall into your lap as an FBS member as opposed to being a member of the CAA.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the Washington State kind of negates the fact that we're playing the school that I don't like to talk about.
Oh yeah, yeah.
God, I call it the necessary evil, because if we avoid them, they're going to recruit negatively against that. So we have to tolerate them.
Well, I mean, I think it makes a good series, and I definitely think that PR with Liberty has definitely improved one with Jerry Falwell Jr. leaving. So I do
Dude,
think.
I've been to that game before. It is not a good series. It is absolutely vile. Like, ah, William and Mary is a rival. Richmond is a rival. We hate them. It's not friendly. Even like with UVA and Virginia Tech, we give each other crap. Sure, we hate them. It is not a rivalry. It's like, oh, there's a reason why I can't stand it. um,
Well,
yeah, but again, we get to play Washington State this year, so I guess we'll call it it'll negate everything.
yeah, I mean, well, I will say that the people that I have interacted with from Liberty fans, I've not really had any bad interactions with any of them, but I could
Yeah,
understand that
well,
there
you're
are a
not a
few people.
JMU fan.
Yeah, that too. I mean, even kind of covering the CUSA teams. They didn't really have anything. We were just kind of dead. UTEP and New Mexico State were kind of dead to Liberty. So yeah, but
Well,
that should be interesting. I forgot the game was
kind of far
happening.
away.
Yeah, definitely. I forgot the game was happening though. Honestly, like I know I had in my bowl projections had hoped for them to meet in a bowl game, preferably the New Orleans Bowl. Honestly, but yeah, it's good that this is finally happening. Actually, after a long time.
Well, so we go there this year, and then they'll come to us the following year. So it's only at 2 games for now, but I'm sure that they'll schedule something out until 2040, and then they'll cancel, of course.
Yeah, yeah. That's how it goes in college football scheduling. But I guess that's all I have to cover. Do you have anything else that you want to promote or just mention before we end?
Well, I think that the article that I wrote about William and Mary in Richmond is on my Preston's Eclectic Musings Substack. So if you want to read me be wrong about William and Mary, go there. But also, I did a college football series of the most influential programs, and there was 39 of them. And the reason why I chose 39 is because that's like roughly around, I think, 10 to 12% of all Division One. And I think I also did some like honorable mentions of places like Biddle College and Elizabeth City State, starting of HBCUs. But now I know you're a Notre Dame fan. Um, I have Grambling ranked higher than Notre Dame.
I totally agree with that. Yeah, I could go on and on about Tank Younger, Buck
Mm,
Buchanan, Doug Williams. My
yes.
favorite, James Shaq Harris, just paving ways. Like people talk about Doug Williams. I want to talk about Shaq Harris. First Pro
Hmm.
Bowl quarterback, first quarterback to start a playoff game for a team. I mean, he doesn't get enough credit as the trailblazer that he is, along with the many position players. I mean, like Charlie Joyner too, right? Who can
Hmm.
forget about Charlie Joyner? So yeah, like I totally agree with that, honestly.
Okay, well, they're both in the top 10, so I didn't totally hate on Notre Dame, but yeah. So there's that series, and of course, college football fans, nobody was happy with where they were ranked.
Yeah, and that's a great thing. There's always something for debate with college football fans.
Exactly, exactly. So other than that, honestly, thanks for having me on again. I really appreciate it. I'm glad that we got to connect again.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. The pleasure is mine. Hopefully, there won't be too much of a gap this time or the next time around. But I will
Yes.
drop those links in the description once this is published. But until next time, everyone, thank you so much for joining or listening. May God bless you and peace, love, and soul on the Burger Popper.
All right. Y'all have a wonderful day.